If I had a second channel, this would probably be the perfect video for that, but considering I just hit 9,000 subscribers, which is awesome, I'm still a relatively small channel, so little stupid videos like this will still have to be in the main channel being the only channel. As I'm filming right now, it is January 1st, 2022, so Happy New Year's everyone, hope you had a good one. And you know, start of the new year, I'm on holidays, I really want to get some projects done. A lot of these projects are to do with retro gaming, or at least the channel in general, so I thought why not make a stupid little video about it. So the main one is the desk that I do all my electronics work on. You've probably seen it in tons of videos, sort of really small black desk that sits next to my computer desk. The main thing is I want to build a little drawer for it so I can, you know, put things like my braid and my solder and just other little bits and bobs that don't really have a place on top of the desk. They can just go in the little drawer. The desk is really cheap. I bought it when I moved into the place I lived in before now. You know, desk would have been under $100. So it doesn't have luxuries like drawers. So I'll be building a drawer. The desk is also a bit wobbly, so I'm hoping to reinforce that as well. So let me show you the desk and what I want to do, and then I'll give you a bit of a sneak peek on the other little things I want to get done in the next couple of days at least before I release this video. So apologies for the shaky cam and the pretty poor lighting. This is a low production value holiday video, but anyway, here is the desk, which as I said you've probably seen plenty times in videos, and like I said, it is a bit wobbly, which makes filming pretty problematic sometimes, to say the least. So I don't know, I'll have to pull out the whole thing to put in the drawer anyway, but I'm going to just tighten up those two support beams and then probably put an additional one in the middle, and hopefully that will make it a bit more stable. But the drawer is going to go over here. Just imagine, there's a drawer right there. And yeah, there's not really much more to say about that. Let me just show you a couple of the other quick things I want to get done over this holiday break. This absolute mess. Look at this. This is bloody awful. So, once upon a time, I only had all my consoles connected in via composite, which I guess was fine like 10 years ago, although it really wasn't. But it's so easy to get really high quality video out of consoles these days, which is particularly good for my channel while I'm recording audio, especially with the aid of this little wonder box right here. So it's just been a bit all over the place at the moment. I mean, I haven't really been in here since I did that last, 3DO stream. But basically there's a bunch of composite I need to purge from that. And I also need to think about what consoles in the near future are going to be getting on the RGB train. So yeah, there'll just be a bit of that. I'm not really going to film myself doing that because it's just going to be horrible as it is to try and, get some, to film it and do the task at the same time. So I'm just going to show you that when I'm finished. And here is the other little secondary project. This is also a woodworking project. Went down to the Salvos the other day. And look at this beast. Found this big 5-disc Sony CD changer. And it works really great. Let me just show you the mechanism on this. It's fantastic. Oh, look at that bad boy. Look at that. That works like an absolute dream. Road tested it yesterday, played a couple of albums. I've been wanting a CD player and my little record player set up here. And when I bought it, I was like, oh, that's a perfect size. I can just put my also Sony branded record player right on the top, but it looks pretty awkward, doesn't it? It's stable. It's nice and flush with the whole thing, but it just looks bad. So I'm gonna be building a little U-shaped kind of half shelf thing that can go over the CD player, and the record player can comfortably sit on top of that. And yeah, I dug this out. This is one of my original, I think it is my original composite switcher. At least one of the original ones, since I've labeled it AV2, but that was back when I lived in my parents' house, back in the blog days. And now it's getting repurposed, so my crappy amp, it only has one set of inputs, so I can switch between the two. That amp is not long for this world, but I've been saying that for 2 years now. Quick side note, I also built the stands for the speakers, so that's another little woodworking project I've done. So yeah, anyway, let's get down to Bunnings. Alright again, sorry for the shaky cam, but you know, January 1st, no production values. Here's the stuff I ended up with, so I guess we'll start from the top. This is actually for the little stand for the record player. These are just to go on the bottom of the little the U-shaped construction, so it A, stays in place, and B, doesn't scratch up the existing vintage cabinet I have. This is for the little the drawer for the for the for the desk. I'm not going to go for a full proper paint job. It's just a drawer under a desk, but apparently this stuff actually comes up pretty good, and it's just going to be hidden away. I just want it to basically match black. It's supposed to be a cheap project, so I didn't really want to, you know, invest too much. Here is the little drawer handle for it. I was wondering what was going on with those screws, but it looks like you can actually snap those off to size, so which is good because it's going through wood that's 18 mils thick. And lastly, these here are the actual drawer mechanisms, the standard drawer slides, one pair. So yeah, pretty good. That only cost $8. All of this was really cheap actually. All of this combined was, I think, $43, and I got a gift card for Christmas for $50 for Bunnings, so it all paid for itself, and they gave me the difference back in cash, so that was pretty nice too. You can't build anything without wood though, of course, and fortunately, I had all this wood on hand. This was just random planks I bought ages ago for something I never did, sitting in the shed, so I've tried to do the calculations best I could. I think I should have enough wood to do everything I want, so, and I've already got the screws and the glue and all the, you know, tools and everything else, so that worked out really well. So here's just sort of a quick and nasty look of what I want to achieve with these projects. This is for the little shelf thing that's going to hold the record player up above the CD player. As you can see, it's very basic. It's just 2 bits of wood on the side, and the top is just 3 slats cut to equal size just for the record player to rest on. As for the actual drawer, again, very basic. I've actually drawn this wrong. It's just going to be this piece at the front. This bit will mirror the bit at the back, even though I've drawn it not like that, but it will. Those 2 pieces in the middle, and then there's also just a flat piece of plywood that goes on the bottom, which I haven't actually shown you. I actually did buy that from Bunnings. I guess there is a shot of me pulling it out of the shelf, but yeah, I'm going to be using that, and that's just a bit of wood that's going to mount under the desk for one side of the drawer, and the existing bit of the desk is going to be the mounting for the other. So as you can see, it's all very basic. I'm no master woodwork craftsman by any stretch of the imagination, but these are just things that I need just for a little bit of fun at the start of the year. And yeah, I'm just making this stupid little video so you can watch me do it, I guess. Having said that, I'm not going to do any of the actual work today. Today was all prep work. To be honest, I'm a little bit sleep deprived and honestly a little bit seedy as well from last night, celebrating the new year coming in. So let's cut to me doing some work probably tomorrow, wearing different clothes. Okay, feeling fresh after a good night's sleep. Let's use some power tools. But first, we need to measure. Nothing is going to be square if you don't measure it, obviously. It's here I would go on about measuring twice, cutting once, blah 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 blah. Really, you just need the right tools for the job. You need to be attentive, making sure you're measuring correctly in the first place, but tools like a good metal ruler, or a tape, and a tri-square are essential in making sure that you have straight cuts. The next struggle is making sure that you actually cut the wood straight. I'm using a circular saw here, which is obviously handheld, so there are some things that need to be put in place. Now there are special tools you can get that will do this, but I don't really have anything fancy like that. Here I'm essentially just using a piece of wood to make sure that when I'm guiding the circular saw across, it cuts straight. Later on, I'd be lining up the circular saw with the tri-square just to doubly make sure that everything was nice and straight. So, a bit of a process to get to a cut that really only lasts a couple of seconds, but all that prep work is really worth it when you don't waste any wood and cut everything correctly the first time. Nice. Now to only do that another 10 times or so. Jumping forward a bit, and here we have the basis of the drawer. Just by very basically assembling it on the floor here, we can see that it looks nice and square. So here's hoping it actually is. And fast forwarding even more time, here is the basis of the shelf. And again, just by eyeing it in, everything seems nice and square. Okay, that took a good part of a day, but we're all done. Time to reclaim my garage by putting cars and stuff back into it. So here I am measuring where all the screws are going to go for the drawer, which isn't really necessary for a simple rectangle. I didn't do it again after this. I did consider both screwing and gluing this together, but since it is such a simple small box, just the screws will suffice. As I got more and more assembled, I could start to use things like clamps to keep everything nice and square as I was screwing it together. But getting up to this last bit did require a bit of problem solving. I'm sure there is a dedicated tool to do this, but hey, just use what you have on hand and save a little bit of money in the process. And it's nice and square. Nice. I guess my solution of scrap pieces of wood worked after all. And now it was time to cut out the bottom piece of the drawer. I didn't really do any major calculations or anything like that since it's more or less on the bottom and you'll never see it, so I simply traced it. With my limited experience from woodworking, sometimes the most obvious and simplest solution is the best one. I mean, sometimes you definitely want to overthink things, but it's not always necessary. Sadly, they didn't really have smaller pieces of this type of wood, and I really wish they did. It turned out to be pretty awkward to saw. This bottom bit is just going to be held in by tacks, mostly because it's just what I already had on hand. Thankfully, nothing too heavy is going into this drawer, so they should hold, and I did put in quite a few of them, so I think everything will be okay. And for the time being, we're done. We have a simple drawer. Go me! Now to form the basis of the shelf. Again, this is very simple. Nothing but good old-fashioned glue and beer are holding this together, as well as some clamps. Once a sufficient amount of glue was applied and a sufficient amount of beer was drunk, I left this to dry overnight. So with that setting, I decided to put on the first coat of paint for the drawer. I've decided to use a rattle can for this, since it will just be sort of out of sight under the desk. I don't think it needs a fully complete paint job, but as you'll soon see, it actually did turn out pretty well. Here's my little spray booth, I guess you could call it. And pro tip, wear gloves and wear a mask. I'm not doing it in this clip because I didn't really think it through enough at the time, but for later painting and little touch-ups I did, which I didn't film, I had the full PPE on. So don't worry. And honestly, I was surprised. After that first coat had dried, it actually looked pretty good, so I decided not to apply a second. I did apply a clear coat though, and this time, again, with the appropriate PPE. So the next day the glue was set and the shelf was nice and flush and structurally sound, so I screwed in the supports. I didn't bother measuring these in, like I did with the drawer. Although, sadly, halfway through I ran out of screws, so I had to run back to Bunnings and get a new pack. After that clear coat was set, it was time to attach the handle to the drawer. And unfortunately things did go a little bit south on this. I knew it was going to be tricky to line up, and while the first screw was obviously pretty straightforward to put in, it was a bit difficult measuring in and lining up the second one, while also making sure that the handle stayed straight. And yeah, I totally cooked it. Not only did I have to drill a second hole, but that wasn't straight, so I've got a handle that works, but it's a little bit crooked and you can see the original screw hole. So yeah, that sucks, especially since the project was going so well. Probably the one who was the most annoyed is likely me, but hey, it still functionally works, so we'll just have to take a big breath and move on. Instead of painting the shelf like I did with the drawer, I decided that this was going to be stained in the hope that it would match the cabinet and the speaker shelves, which I also built myself. But before we start, we need to give everything a light sanding, just so everything applies a bit more smoothly. Now, pine is notorious for being difficult to stain, so I am applying this primer first, just in the hope that the stain will look a little bit better. Honestly, staining pine will never really look that good, but it is better than nothing. Better than just the straight plain wood. Going forward with other projects, I think I will invest in more higher quality wood, just so the end result looks a bit better. But for this project, the idea was to use those scrap pieces of wood I already had, so let's just get on with it. So after giving that approximately 12 hours to dry, the stain can go on. I'm using a combination stain that includes the varnish as well. All in all, I'll be applying 3 coats that take 12 hours each to dry. So as we wait on that process, let's install the drawer. Firstly though, we need to take everything off the desk and then just pull it out so it's a bit easier to work on. Okay, please excuse the background noise caused by the 3D printer, but here is my plan, more or less, for installing the drawer. So, here are my hinges. This one's already in 2 bits. This is the bit that's going onto the drawer. This is the bit that's mounting to the desk. So, one of these will mount on the existing desk up here. Not sure if you can see that. Drawer will go here. And then this bit of wood will be mounted here with the other rail going on it like that. So considering how I messed up putting on a simple handle, I'm honestly not feeling that confident about this, so yeah, wish me luck. Installing the first slide was pretty easy as it determined the locations of everything else. I just had to make sure that it was level.
Yeah, it's pretty level.
And again, the same goes for the companion piece on the drawer. I can pretty much install this wherever I want, as long as it's level. And honestly, there's quite a lot going on in this scene. Not only am I installing the drawer, but if you look at the computer, you'll see that I'm rendering a 3D animation. This is something I'm trialing for an upcoming episode of Wonders of the Retro Gaming World. And if you look to the right, we got the 3D printer going for my Vectrex mini project, which is going along pretty swimmingly at the moment, so hopefully I'll have something more conclusive to show you on that soon. And also pro tip, don't create all the holes at once like I'm doing here with the drill. If you're off, it really makes mounting the slide straight a pain. It's much better to do one or two, install the slide, and then install the rest because you know everything's going to be nice and straight. And just as a quick test using one side of the slides, everything seems to be going well. It moves nice and freely and doesn't collide with any part of the existing desk. Now to mount the other slide. This attaches to a separate piece of wood that will go on the other side of the drawer. So far, I just need to make sure that it's at the same distance down from the desktop as the other slider, if that makes any sense. The positioning horizontally will matter once we have the drawer installed. So I attached all the slider components together here, which is a bit hard to see because of my fat head. The idea was to basically line it up and see where it needed to be mounted on the desk. Once I was happy it was in a spot that the slider could easily go in and out, I marked the location on the desk of that secondary piece of wood with a pencil. And then using that pencil line, I drilled a few mounting holes. Although the one closest to the edge of the desk is nowhere near where the support piece of wood is supposed to go. Obviously I just wasn't thinking straight. Silly me. And this is me quote unquote improvising since I was home alone and had no one to hold it there for me. This was just a bad idea, it didn't really work out at all. It was really hard to screw the whole thing in flush since the piece of mounting wood would just push itself into that ream of paper instead of be pulled up against the desk top. If that, again, that makes sense. Kinda hard to explain this. But even after all that quote unquote improvising, the drawer didn't really work as intended. The support piece was too close to the other side of the desk. Oh no! But I figured out and for some reason didn't film it, which is a bit strange. But I ended up just holding it in the correct place and drilling again. Turns out it wasn't that hard, I didn't need to stack a bunch of shit under the desk. Luckily, I could just use the same holes that I've already drilled in the tabletop, so I guess my first attempt must have just only been a few millimeters off. So, as we can see here with some slightly awkward filming, the drawer is functioning as intended. Yeah, look at that drawer action. So with that done, we can put the desk back in its original spot and then actually put stuff in the drawer. Cool! So, this project is done. Here's all the sort of stuff I plan on keeping in the drawer. Just odds and ends that don't really have a spot on top of the desk. Even though it wasn't a completely smooth ride, I'm really quite proud of myself. I've never really built anything like this before. Anyway, enough of the fun I'm having here. Let's go check in on the other projects. And this little project is done. It took a long time. A very long time. We're about 3 hours actually. And honestly, it still doesn't look great, but it looks much better than it did. For one, there was 4 of these originally, now there's 2. I got rid of some redundancy basically. So if you look over here, I've rearranged the consoles a little bit. Put the N64 and the Dreamcast up there so they're nice and close to the OSSC, which is now integrated into the setup. But like I said, there was a bit of redundancy, so I had lots of composite cables just flying everywhere, especially between the boxes themselves. So to reduce down to 2 switch boxes, that's 2 composite cables we've removed there. But there were still cables for like the PS2 and the Xbox, and you know, they've all got component. Same for the Dreamcast and the N64. Basically everything that I've moved on from composite, for some reason I still had the cables there. So it's just cable mayhem. So it's been good to remove those. The other big change, it's not really a huge change, but I decided to swap out my Mega Drive for the Mega Drive 2. Not really any reason, it's just the cable's a bit neater because the stereo cable is integrated into the one cable as opposed to me having to plug one into the headphone jack out the front like before. And also it's just a bit of a sea change. The original Mega Drive had been there for about 10 years nearly, so you know, I would give the Mega Drive 2 a bit of a playtime. But yeah, not really much to say. It was a lot of work. Cable management still leaves something to be desired, but you'll see things like this where I've zip tied up all the slack. So even though it does look a little bit messy, it shouldn't get tangled like it was before because it was just an absolute, you know, mama's spaghetti beforehand. And yeah, the only other thing is I just sort of tidied up the component as far as like the Elgato recording goes, because they have to share the audio inputs with composite, so I have to swap around some cables, but yeah, I've just tried to neaten that up a little bit as well. So yeah, side project number one, well, side project number one, complete. The other side project was complete too. Here's how it looks after 3 coats of stain and varnish. The only thing left to do was put on the little rubber feet, and it was ready to be installed in its final position. And here we go. Obviously I can't play the music that's actually playing for obvious content ID related reasons, but everything works great. I instead opted to use one of the switch boxes from the retro gaming room, as that little blue one is actually kind of a pain to use. It's annoying because it has cables coming out both the front and the back, so you can't really set it up and make it look nice and clean. While with this box, everything is in the back and hidden away. So since it wasn't being used anymore, I decided to repurpose it here. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you if you watched all the way through. I look forward to a big year for Retro Game On in 2022, so I'll see you there. Catch you next time.